Welcome to our talk on the 3C pathway. I'm really excited to share this with you today. So you're going to be listening to a 10-minute talk, and then you're going to meet one of our teammates, Jordan, who's really going to explain his lived experience with the 3C pathway. Do you struggle to understand your child's emotions? And does your child struggle to understand yours? Now, if the answer is yes, you're not alone. Lots of people in the autistic community find that they have a real challenge in expressing their emotions to people they live with or work with. But likewise, the parents and the professionals who work with them often don't understand them either. And this is one of the biggest problems. Before we go forward, I think we have to go back a bit and really establish an understanding of what is autism. For many years, we've had really confusing definitions and often misdiagnoses. But currently, the common understanding of autism is a lifelong developmental condition. It affects how someone sees, perceives, and feels the world around them. If you're autistic for life. But it's also important to recognize that no two autistic people have the same experience. Having spoken to so many people over the years that I've worked in the autistic community, the one thing they seem to have in common is that feeling of disconnect. Disconnected from themselves, but also disconnected from the wider community. Often we only really witness autism when we see a certain behavior. And that behavior can look like aggression, defiance, or it can look like withdrawal and closing down. And often what happens is the people around them start to notice that and want to support that, which is well intended. So there might be the suggestion of an anger management course or a social skills group. But what those people are forgetting is to look underneath. And what is causing, what is the root, what is leading to that behavior? We now know that in autism, there are 4 key areas of difference. And in understanding these, it really helps you make better connections with the young people. So those 4 areas of difference that we're looking at are interacting. Our young people might find it really difficult to interact in certain environments, but also just to interact differently. Doesn't mean to say it's wrong. Processing. Our children's processing speeds, their learning styles might be different, but again, doesn't necessarily make it wrong. Communication, the communication style, the understanding, but also the developmental style, when they learn to speak and how they learn to speak might be very different, but doesn't make it wrong. And the 4th area of difference is sensory. I think we all know now that autistic individuals find the sensory world very stimulating and often can feel overstimulated or understimulated and can find it really hard to regulate. So if we know that all those things are different for our young people and could potentially cause difficulty, that really helps us to start to understand empathetically what that person might be going through, let's say in a classroom environment or a home environment or a hospital environment or just in everyday life. So we've worked on a very simple approach called the 3C pathway. What we're trying to do with our very simple relational approach is help you understand the autistic person better. We see autism as a connection issue, not a behavior issue. So if you can work on making better connections with the young person or adult, then hopefully you'll be able to understand each other better. Because conversely, if we don't support them with their overwhelm, if we don't give them person-centered support strategies, if we don't allow them to voice their feelings, if they build up an isolation and anxiety state, you are going to get those behaviors, as you would with anybody. And in the autistic mindset, if you can't have an outlet for those feelings, often what happens is it can end up in a meltdown. And you might have heard the word meltdown. It's when a child explodes with their energy. They can't contain themselves. It's chaotic. It's exhausting. But also our children can often shut down, close down their energy, become nonverbal, distance themselves from the world. And again, that's exhausting too, which feeds back into this not understanding the world. Why am I feeling like this? Why is my body doing this to me? And our job is to break that cycle, to not just look at the end of the arrow, the red box, where you can see aggression and defiance and withdrawal, but to look at the other end of the arrow where we can see overwhelm and confusion and work on how we can help that. And the 3C pathway really helps you get into that space. So let's break down the 3C pathway. So we've got connection, we've got calm, and then we've got communicate. Connect. The main thing there is about, does that child feel safe with you? Do you validate them? Do you acknowledge them with no judgment? Do you see them? Do you empathetically connect with them and say, I get it, and actually really get it? And if they know that, they'll start to feel safer in your presence and open up to you. Then there's calm. I don't know about you, but often when I'm working with a young person who might be agitated, it makes me agitated. I'm worried for them, I'm concerned, but actually my agitation is only escalating it for everybody. So I have to think about how I manage my energy, my internal energy, my heartbeat, but also my rhythm of speech, my rhythm of movement. So I have to take things down low and slow and create a calmer space. So I'm not just more noise. But also, what about the environments that we're working in or living in? How chaotic is it? How inconsistent is it? And all of that will impact on that child's ability to regulate, communicate. So often we want communication to be about, I'm talking to you, you're listening, you're talking to me. That's overwhelming for a child who, first of all, finds it hard to hear that noise sometimes that we're making in our communication dynamic, but also they can't necessarily voice what they're feeling. There's pressure. They need to process their thoughts really carefully before they verbalize them. But also, sometimes they don't know what to say. They don't know what the answer is. So communication has to be about a rhythm between the two of you that might not even include words. It might be thumbs up. It might be emojis. It might be pictures. It might just be being alongside and communicating that they are safe and that you are on their side. All of this can come into your practice. It's something that you can do unconsciously. You're driving in the car, going for a walk, or something consciously in what we call clear time. So clear time kind of runs through the whole of our 3C pathway principle. Clear time is the state you need to be in. So clear time is about how are you being in that moment with the child? So are you clear of anxiety? Are you clear of distractions? And are you clear of judgments? And that's really hard, but that's something we have to work on in our practice. If you work on your clear time with the child, you're probably going to be doing the 3C pathway without even knowing it. So if you've enjoyed this talk, we really encourage you to have a go. Start today, see what happens. But don't worry, if it doesn't work straight away, keep persisting, make slight adjustments, and just see what happens, because we have seen some amazing results, and I really want to encourage you to try it.
I was probably introduced to the 3C pathway first when I was about 15 or 16. It helped me to find a way to connect and kind of reach out into that parallel universe and kind of leave that parallel line of never meeting to kind of then fully immerse myself into the world that I know today. So when I was younger, I found communicating my feelings, my needs quite difficult because I didn't necessarily understand what was going on in my mind. And if I didn't understand that, how on earth is anyone else supposed to understand that? People would see things and kind of say, oh, Jordan's feeling this, Jordan's doing that. And actually that isn't correct because they didn't understand, because I didn't understand. And it was just a lot of dysregulation on all parties. So I started to feel safe to communicate my feelings and needs once everyone in my life started using the 3C pathway, because it just felt like a whole new approach that I was able to really understand, and it was predictable. So when people first started using the 3C pathway with me, it was a bit tricky at times because it was new to me and it was new to everybody else, and how it was used with me would look very differently to how it would be used with anyone else. And it was kind of just a bit of trial and error and kind of working out what worked for me and what I found comfortable and what people supporting me found worked for them and what they found comfortable. So I think if the 3C pathway wasn't a strategy in my life, I think I'd be quite behind, and I don't think I'd have the ambition that I have now in my life. And I don't think I'd be here today stood in front of a camera talking about autism, because I wouldn't have the self-awareness. And I think I'd probably be quite isolated, and I'd probably remain in that parallel universe of living alongside, but being misunderstood and never really understanding others. When I'm around people who feel calm, it helps me to feel safe, and it helps me to kind of really connect with that. When people are a bit chaotic or very busy, that straight away gives me vibes that make me feel very on edge and very unsafe. And I find it really difficult to process that and communicate with all of that, along with the cognitive chaos that sometimes goes on in my mind. I guess how I've been able to use the 3C pathway within my work, I've been able to use it in a variety of ways in and outside of the classroom setting, and just kind of really getting to know every single child and get to really know their interests and build up that safe relationship to be able to then apply and go further within every aspect of the education. Once I've gone through the 3C pathway and I get to that communication stage, I see some really great results that I wouldn't have predicted seeing when I first met that child, because I've built up that safe relationship with them over time, and I'm able to kind of go in with those demands that I would as a teacher with a neurotypical student. I'm able to see some really great results in terms of learning, and also being able to see things that I really wouldn't expect, because I took all that time prior to really connect and get to know that pupil, and to really create that safe space and that calming and have that clear time with them, which sometimes it's very difficult to find that time as a classroom practitioner, but it's absolutely vital to have a really successful relationship with any child who is autistic. I think my advice for parents and carers where they're not quite sure how they might use this, or whether they're unsure if it would work, would be to give it a go, because I've seen so many great things out there and lots of things that you can do, but this is such a simple thing that you can do without much training, or any training for that matter. And it's just something really simple and easy, and it's just about making small adaptations that everyone can access and understand.
So thank you very much for listening. I hope you found it useful. You can keep in contact with us via our website, and also there are lots more resources on there. And we have a program of monthly webinars that you're welcome to join. Just sign up to our Instagram or our socials and you can find out what we're up to there.